Do you remember the children's story by P.D. Eastman called Are You My Mother? It's a cute little story. A baby bird falls out of its nest, goes around from thing to thing and place to place, trying to get reunited with its parent, eventually gets back to its mom, and all is right in the world. You know, when I was a kid, I had a similar story. Stuff going on at home was hard to deal with, and I was constantly on the lookout for people that I could connect with, places where I could go and try and fit in and feel like I was part of something. God placed someone named Steve in my life. He was a high school student at the children's ministry and at the daycare center where I was introduced to Christ. This guy, Steve, was a wonderful example of what it meant to follow Jesus and somebody who would come alongside and be a father figure, a surrogate brother of sorts in my life story. You know, Francis Chan, author and pastor, says this: "For a person to be truly discipled and growing in their faith, they need more than one person discipling them." Do you remember Moses in the wilderness with his 1 million person family? Deuteronomy 6 lays out the kind of modeling that needs to happen in the home and the family of faith. We recognize the power of biological and spiritual family when it comes to disciple making and influencing kids in the way of Christ. But today there's a growing chasm between the church and the home. We often start by asking questions like, what does regular attendance mean these days? Well, that depends on who initiates the conversation. If parents ask the question, they feel like they're attending more often. And when you ask churches, they say people aren't attending often enough. We have a significant disagreement between the church and the home as to how we establish priorities and use our time. As the church, we can't keep treating every family as if they're all the same. They have different questions, issues, struggles, and needs. And parents can't keep pointing to the church asking for more. We need you to do this or provide this or offer that. The finger pointing between the church and the home must stop for the sake of the kids who we care deeply about. Our role and responsibility at this point is to break down barriers between families, both in the church and in the homes. It's time for us to build bridges. One way to do this is by living out the way Jesus called us to love. He said, love each other. It's hard to grasp God's love when your fists are clenched. True discipleship leads to interdependence, not independence. We need these bridges between the church and the home so that kids of all ages will grow up following Christ across a lifetime. Neither families nor the church family can rear children on their own. It's by design that kids are part of a whole community, not just their parents. Every generation needs every generation. Parents are crying out for help. Are we ready to come alongside? Spiritually speaking, families succeed when they receive the right care, coaching, and challenge that they need. By recognizing the distinctiveness of families, church ministries and children's ministries can come alongside these families. What are unconventional ways that your church does this? What have you tried that isn't working? What needs to be disruptive in your bridge building approach when it comes to these families? This chapter presents 3 relational bridges that you can build between your ministry and the home. Bridges that will equip you to establish care, coaching, and challenge in ways that will serve families and the church. Building unconventional community isn't easy, but it's always worth it. Who are you being called to reach out to in your children's ministry or your church these days? And will you respond for the sake of a child that God wants you to reach? In my opinion, the finger pointing between the church and the home must stop for the sake of the kids who are caught in the middle. We have the calling and responsibility to build bridges between church and home, to do it in unconventional ways, things that haven't been tried, because it's time for us to break down barriers that are keeping these two worlds apart.